If you just want to jot on top multiplying, did we talk about this before? We did parts of an addition problem and a subtraction problem. No, was that you guys? We do. Parts of a subtraction problem, then were what? Colin, you remember what they were?
They were the minuend, the subtrahend, and the difference.
That's right. How many of you had a chance to use those words this weekend with your parents? You did, Victoria? Did you ask your mom? You said, "Mom, what's the subtrahend if the minuend?" Did you really?
She said, I don't know, you?
So, wow, I'm very impressed that you actually did that. Good. Very good. So we didn't talk about multiplication problems, did we?
No.
But you know, the multiplication one reads, what's the answer to a multiplication problem? 56 in this case is the, I don't know why we came up with this name. Colin?
The product?
Yeah, it's the product. And the two numbers you multiply together, somebody out there, Nathan says,
Factors?
yeah, they're factors. Anybody know why they don't have different names? Like in subtraction, all three have different names. Multiplication, they don't. Factors are just factors. Anybody? Nathan?
Because you can switch them around and they'll still be the same thing.
Correct. You can switch those around because 7 and 8 are interchangeable. 8 times 7, 7 times 8, they're both 56. So you couldn't name them different things because then it just wouldn't make any sense to anybody. So very good. Now today we're talking about, did we talk about the commutative property as well? We did, didn't we? I know it's been a while ago.
You're gonna make this bigger?
No, you can just write this down under multiplication because it's the same thing as with addition. What, remember in addition, what did the commutative property say? A long time ago. Remember I told you, it probably comes from that word commute, which your parents commute to work, they move, they go from one place to another. Commutative property. Besides my favorite three right here. Yes, Marilyn? Do you remember what the commutative property of addition was? I don't think so. It's really not one of the most favorite. Asim?
Means you can switch the factors around and it'll still have the same answer.
Yeah, Asim nailed it. Commutative property says this, that these numbers can commute or move around. 8 times 7 is 56, so is 7 times 8. It doesn't matter, they are equal. 7 times 8 equals 8 times 7. And I said it's important to remember that. We do it all the time, but we never think about it. But it is not true for division, right? Anybody know what 8 divided by 4 is? 8 divided by 4 is, Andrew?
2.
2. Can I flip those two numbers around? 4 divided by 8. You have $4 and you divide it among 8 people. The answer is not 2. Everybody doesn't get 2. It is not negative. That's adding and subtracting. I thought you probably knew about that. Yeah, see, that's a little bit tougher, isn't it? 4 divided by 8. Trev?
5.
What's that?
5.
Oh, it's, yeah, he said 0.5, but it's half, whatever you want to say. If you take 4 apples, and you have to divide it with 8 friends of yours, everybody's going to get a half of an apple. So that is the commutative property of multiplication, which means you can just move those numbers around. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about multiplying with money. That's kind of actually the big thing we talked about this. Write down this problem. 2 dozen pencils . 2 dozen pencils cost 35 cents each. How much will all the pencils cost? Which to figure out how I'm going to figure out how much all those pencils cost, what am I going to have to do? I personally like the fun way to do it. Let's add. Adding, how could I do this by adding? I would have to do what? Add how much what?
You would have to write 35 cents 24 times.
Very good. Should we do that? Does anybody want to do 35 cents 24 times? Please?
Right.
No, that's not. That would be a waste of our time. Rather than adding 35 24 times, I'm going to do what? Yeah, multiply. 35 cents times 12. We are jumping in. This is a little harder than last year, isn't it? Sure. How about 24? That is only the third time today I've been wrong, just so you know. I got a couple more before I'm completely out. Which brings us back to our multiplication. You remember what algorithm was last year? See how quickly you forget everything? Remember the whole everything you needed to learn, you learned as a fifth grader thing? Or that was kindergarten. How do I multiply? Algorithm means how do I do this? What's my first step in multiplying two double-digit numbers together? First step? Anybody? Colton says?
Write it down.
Why did you do that? Yeah, thank you for that. Let's say we've already jumped into the writing it down part. Colton, how about second? Sam?
5 times 4.
Right, you start with this digit, remember? Start with the units digit and it gets multiplied by both of these. 4 times 5 is
20.
20, you carry the 2. 4 times 3 is
12.
plus the 2 is.
14.
Now here, ladies and gentlemen, is what, if you go wrong with double-digit multiplication, this is what you forget to do. What has to happen now, Sammy? Sammy?
You have to change it to dollars.
No, I'm not done yet. I went halfway done with my problem. That's how we're going to finish up. Meg?
You add a 0.
Right. Because this 2, boys and girls, that 2 doesn't stand for 2, it stands for 20 because of where it's at. You have to start with a 0 for that before you do any of the multiplying by 2. So then I multiply the 2 times the 5, which is 10. Multiply the 2 times the 3, which is 6 plus the 1, which is 7. Now we're going to have a big finish with Sammy in a minute. I end up with 840 cents, children. Cents. But Sammy's going to tell me this is not an acceptable way to do this because what, Sammy?
You need to change it to dollars.
Right. We don't, when you go to the store, the clerk doesn't say that'll be 840 cents, please. Okay, the clerk's going to tell you you need to pay them $8.40. So please make sure when you're doing cents, anything over 99 cents is going to be, oh, look at this one. Oh, we do division. What is going on here? This is craziness. How about this problem? 400 times 874. Is there anybody out there that might want to tell me what I should do here to make my life just a little easier? Because maybe we'll do it both ways. Maybe we'll go hard and then we'll go easy. Yes, sir?
You multiply 874 by 400.
Right, which means because of what property we just talked about? What was that property we just said? Yeah, it's so much easier to flip these around and put the 400 on the bottom. Because let's do it the hard way. If you didn't, here's the 2 ways you can do this. If I multiply this as is, 4 times 0, 4 times 0, 4 times 4 is 16. Then I get to this digit, I have to I'm gonna go fast here. Add a 0 because that's in the tens place. 7 times 0, 7 times 0, 7 times 4. Then when I get to this place, what do I have to do, Frankie? Add 2 zeros, thank you. You were a little slow in answering, so on it. 8 times 0, 8 times 0, 8 times 4. Then when I get here, I gotta do all this adding.
Confusion.
Yes,
Nothing but confusion. But, did I do something wrong?
You could have just put the 4 2 digits that way instead of multiplying, just multiply all by 4.
Well, thank you, Frankie. That's what I'm getting at. Remember, I said I was going to do it the hard way first so you could see what the benefit. Because of the commutative property, I can put the 874 on top. And then because I'm multiplying by 400, the book encourages you, anytime you end with zeros, I think Frankie was going with that, you can do what the book says and hang out the zeros or hang over the zeros or whatever it is there. If it ends with zeros, you can stick those zeros out there and just bring them straight down, which gives you a double 0, right? And now multiply by the 4. 16, carry the 1, 28 plus 1 is 29, carry the 1, 32 plus 2 is 34. And look, ladies and gentlemen, which way, same answer, but which way made your life easier?
B.
This is way past the 15 stuff.
Yeah.
See, and this is going to take, by the way, most times don't take this. All right, we're still on multiplication. We actually should go back to, you look at your notes under identity property, the properties, the one we did, the properties, you shouldn't have many notes. Let's look at those quickly. Last year. Perfect. Under your properties notes, let's add a couple. We have the identity property, do you?
Yeah.
But this is the identity property of multiplication. Did we put that one down? I don't think we did. We did addition.
Yeah.
And the identity property of addition was that you add 0, right? Isn't that what it says in the notes?
Yeah.
Work with me here, kids. Hey, do you have a question? You're going to tell me what I'm asking? The multiplication, identity of multiplication is not multiplying by 0 like addition. You add 0, but you want to know what do you multiply a number by to get the same number. Addition, you added 0 because 8 plus 0 gave you 8. But then multiplication, to get the same number, I actually, Peyton!
1.
Yes, you multiply by 1. That's the identity property. So if they ever ask you the identity property of multiplication, you simply say, I multiplied by 1. And then, under one other property here, we have what's called the 0 property of multiplication. We didn't do that either, did we? Or did we? Now, I am going to let you think about the 0 property of multiplication, because I'll bet you can tell me what the 0 property of multiplication is before I tell you. The 0 property of multiplication. I'll let you give you time to think about it. Sam says
Times 0.
is
Oh, 0. Or
So-
2, like, times, example, 2 times 0 equals 0.
so what is the global phrase I can say?
Anything
Times 0?
is 0.
Yeah, and that's what it is. Anything times 0 is 0. Anything times 0 is 0. You want to see how big that is in real life? How about this? What is that?
Wow.
And then, oh boy. What time did this get over?
11:20.
This is almost borderline ridiculous. I need to take out one more blank piece of paper. I promise if you're good, I won't. Although you don't have soccer game for that match, but you have plenty of time to do it. Colin, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's not that mandatory meeting, so we have to.
Oh, yes, you're right. Let's not forget about that. Write down in your notes under division. Did I do something wrong? Under division, ladies and gentlemen, here is what you need to jot down. Am I on the right book? Because this seems like seventh grade stuff. No? 8 divided by 2 is 4. At least every time I've done it. Division is a lot like subtraction in the sense that there's some names to these things that you don't use very often. But since you're in math and we need to learn math, we do usually know what the answer to a division problem. The answer to a division problem is somebody? Meryl? Very good. Quotient. It is the quotient. These other two you rarely will hear. Victoria's going to go home and talk to her mother about these as well. The first one is, you looking at your notes. Do you have it from before? Do you remember this, Marilyn? Marilyn, the first one is the dividend. I'm thoroughly impressed about that. And then Trevor says, I remember the middle one is called the divisor. Now, the book, in order to help you out, does a little bit of this. Because there's 3 different ways you can show division. One of them is like this. I'll write it out like this. The dividend divided by the divisor equals the quotient. That's one way to write it. But we can also write division problems as fractions, correct? Remember, this 8 divided by 2 is 4. Well, if I'm doing it like that, the places where these are important. And it's like this. The dividend over the divisor equals the quotient. Yeah. This is one way to show it. The second way to show it. The third way to show division is by Jordan Shaw. Yeah, the fraction box, which is this. Okay, which is this. The dividend fraction box under the fraction box. The divisor over here. And the quotient up here. You're going to want to write that down because I'm going to give you fair warning on something that confuses most 6th graders. Are you ready? How do I know it confuses most 6th graders, Max? Because after 30 years of doing this, I figured out what confuses most 6th graders. Are you ready? Write this problem down. If the dividend, no, I'm sorry, let me change that. If the quotient is 24 and the divisor is 6, what is the dividend? This is a lot of talking. Are you ready for my stern warning?
Yes.
Are you ready? Because at some point you'll say, wow, you are right, Mr. Hahn. You do understand 6th grade downfalls. Most people, when they look at this, they think of a division problem, right? You're thinking, well, I already talked about division. They see the number 24, and they see the number 6, and they think, oh, well, it's 24 and 6. My answer must be 4, because that's a fact family, and 4 times 6 is 24. Raise your hand if at least that thought crossed your mind. All right, those of you who are brutally honest with me, that's what you did. Now, I have to warn you, okay, that is not, sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. What you're thinking on is this. Let's write this problem out. The quotient was 24, right? So let's write it out like this. My answer has to be 24, correct? My divisor, which was this middle one, the divisor which goes right here, was 6. I want to know what this number was, which is the dividend. Now, if I put 4 in there, is 4 divided by 6 going to give me 1d4? No. If this was my missing number, what actually do I have to do to these two to get that one? And if you forgot, remember when we used to, back in the day when we were missing a number? 2 times 3 is 6. Wait, sorry, I was doing a division problem. Problem 6 divided by 3 is 2. If I'm missing the first number here, if I was missing this, what do I do with 3 and 2 to get 6? Yes, multiply. So my answer should be whatever 24 times 6 is, which happens to be 144. Your answer is 144. This is way more talking than I used to know. So, let you be forewarned. If they tell you that stuff, please make sure you're sure where you're putting the stuff in. Stuffing? Is it Thanksgiving already? Somebody laughed at that. Thank you for doing that. Is they recording? Oh, rats. Yes. I need you to go back to your multiplication notes. I am sorry about this, children. This is my fault. Can you tell I'm just not in mid-season form yet?
Yes.
Under your multiplication form, please write this down. Just like with division, remember there were 3 ways to show division? Different ways to show multiplication. I don't know how I missed this, but I will answer the questions now rather than later. Well, first of all, you could have this. Sorry. 6 times 7. That's one way to show multiplication. But math people like to confuse you, so here are a whole bunch of different ways. You can do 6 if you see a dot between numbers. That means 6 times 7. Same thing as this. Why? Maybe this makes sense to you. Why do you suppose sometimes we don't want to use that as our multiplication sign, especially when you get to hard math? Frankie?
Well, maybe the question is what 6x is.
Right, because in math a lot of times we use the letters to stand for numbers. So somebody might get confused whether that's a multiplication sign or an X. Okay. Another way to show multiplication is with parentheses. If you have a parenthesis around numbers, that is the same thing as 6 times 7. Okay. Now, lest to confuse you that, so is this. You only have to have a parenthesis around one of the numbers. This is still 6 times 7, and this is still 6 times 7. All of these are just different ways to write multiplication. I apologize for that. I didn't make the rules. I just follow the game. We might run out of, is this under 11:20?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be a shame if this went so long we didn't have time for homework? Why are you crying, Sam? Is it because you might have math homework? Wait, would you cry if crying got you out of math homework? Would you not cry? Is there anybody in here that would cry if it got you out of math homework? Can anybody make themselves cry? Frankie, I'm not so sure I would admit to it if that was the case. Now, back to division, because we're not done with division. Back to division. I hate to even do this. Let's do this problem. 200 divided by 12. Just so you remember, if we're actually doing this problem, which you will, 200 divided by 12 looks like this. 12 into 200, correct? You with me? Please follow. Do you remember the algorithm for this?
Yeah.
What was it? Does nobody like math? Or
No, it was.
wait, Mrs. Lutz had a different What
You're math.
divide, under, multiply, bring down.
Dumb. Does math seem dumb?
Does
No,
math.
does math seem boring or something like that? No.
Oh, it was. Subtract, bring down. Does math seem boring? Anyway, when you're doing the problem, here's what it's got to look like. Please follow this. It's important to be neat and organized here. 12 doesn't go into 2, so you should not have a number above the 2. You don't have to put an X there, but I do that for emphasis. Does 12 go into 20? How many times would you say? Who has an answer to that? Kelly? Just once. That's your division part. Now I multiply the 1 times the 12. I put her there. I subtract, and then I bring down. And I will tell you again, ladies and gentlemen, I need to see this. Only because it helps you keep straight. When you run out of arrows, you run out of the division parts. Now the whole thing starts all over. How many times does 12 go into 80? And there's no easy way. Sometimes it's just trial and error. Sam says?
6.
Well, we try 12 times 6 is 72. Looks like a good answer to me. So I put my 6 there. 72. I subtract. There's nothing left to bring down because I ran out of arrows there. So what do I do with the crazy 8s? This 6th grade math is tough. Very tough. Julia, what do I do with the crazy 8? Yeah. For right now, you'll do remainder. Later on, we won't. Just know that a remainder doesn't really mean anything to you. So I could ask you for a remainder 8 of a cookie, you would not have any idea what I mean.
Yeah, 8.
What's that?
You're done or no?
I wish I were. Yes, I am done. Wait, let me do this. I want you right now to do this problem. $8.40 divided by 5. $8.40 divided by 5. If you do that while Mrs. Stone asks me the ever burning question.
Why do you, I'm in grade book, I'm trying to help Victoria set hers up. Categories I saw, I broke into your math on hers. Just so you can teach me. If you do homework, I do assignment, I should add it into the You had percent, I had mixed. Okay.
Maybe mix the line, you could put 1 and 2, but I have actually so I was just looking at
Okay. That's what that one. And then on both our times, something's wrong. I wonder if Jesse would try. I would have to.
That's, I don't have that answer. We got an answer, 6th grade? Voice the ball, ladies and gentlemen. You're dividing $8.40 into equal parts, so you're still going to have money as your answer, so please make sure you have money as your answer. And when you get it, Andrew, you get
$1.68.
$1.68. I don't know if that's right, but I'm gonna do that here. But when you have a decimal in your, what is that number called? The dividend. What is the first thing, when you look at this problem, the first thing you should do is,
Move it up.
you should stick that thing and go straight above where it's at, because that's where it will go in your answer. Okay, and then you need to keep those straight. 5 goes into 8 one time, so we're good with that. You subtract. Then you bring down. How many times does 5 go into 24? Do I have that right? Should this be a 3?
Yes.
How many times does, I noticed by the laugh of people, how many times does 5 go into 34, Victoria?
6.
6 times, which is 30. That was the number 4th time I was wrong today. And then I bring down my last one. How many times does 5 go into 40? Meg?
8 times.
8 times. And that works out evenly, so your answer is this. Please understand this, ladies and gentlemen. For right now, if you don't get an even answer, if you get a remainder when you're dividing something into dollars, you've probably done something wrong. Because there's no possible way they would give you $1.68 remainder 3. Okay, because you're just, so if they give you a dollar problem and you get a remainder, then ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, you might want to go back and retrace your steps on all that. Oh, what else? How is this even so, this is crazy. What time does this class get over?
11:20.
What time is it now?
11:16.
If Sam